drivers of the employee podcast.
Yeah, and 5-year.
And we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our agenda. The minutes from December 4th, December 18th, and January 6th. President's remarks, swearing in our new board member, Jeff Knepper. General Manager's report, public comment, old business, resolution M09, second reading, Marty Clark. New business, none. CPI actions, Bob Thompson, none. And entire group of appointments to Pat Supik, Bernie Flax, John Weisselberger, Doug Slingler, and Austin Scorpio. Media questions and adjournment. Any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. We have a search committee that needs to be appointed to.
Okay.
You want their names now?
Now we'll get them
Okay.
at that point.
Oh.
Yes.
I still don't see November
Yeah,
20.
I'm going to make note of that.
November
Mark.
20th, is that going to be on there?
I'll just take
Okay, because that's a whole set of minutes, not just any part.
The
November
minutes
20th has never been approved.
never been approved. That's correct. They were tabled until.
We kept moving.
That was the thing you had to go back and
And
look at the video.
I checked and I got with.
There were a couple of changes.
Yeah, a couple
We're
things.
supposed.
But if we don't have it with us, then
Oh, we can't.
we're moving. Yes, we will.
Can we put that on the August agenda?
Put that in August meeting. Which year? Yeah, we're going to put that in the back of your truck and carry it around.
I think the most important part was the first.
Sorry about that. Yes, Bill.
Had a motion to do an internal loan release for this core expenditure outstanding to the SunTrust Bank.
Okay. We'll call that new business. Anything else? Any other changes, adjustments? Okay. Let's move to the minutes that we have. Lots of pieces of paper. December 4th. Work session. Any changes or adjustments to those minutes?
I move to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? You're abstaining on that one, just one. You want to remember it there. December 18th, regular meeting.
Move to accept as written.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? None? Thank you. And January 6th, special.
Move to approve as written.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, President's remarks. Just to report some activity that did go on between meetings. There was a motion put forth by Marty Clark. I thank you for this motion. It was a motion by the board to approve my signature of the easement that I had signed for the county's sewer work they were doing by Taylor Bank and over by the post office. I had signed that waiver without board approval, which was an error on my part. Marty made the motion that we had posthumously approved my signature, and it was taken care of. So that goes into record now that motion was passed by the board.
What about the 10 lashes?
10 lashes, I haven't shown up for those yet. I haven't done that part yet. Joe, if you'll sit tight, we're going to move right to Bob for now because we're still awaiting arrival. So, Bob, we'll move to you.
much.
No objection.
Thanks.
All of that.
I want to say it
Got
too.
enough?
Yeah.
Here. I'm fine.
Oh, nice.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, Terry Moore will not be with us today. The computers at her office completely blew up this morning, so she is knee deep in IT problems. That's why she's not.
All right, just I've given you a printed copy as usual. It's up on the board as well. Real short GM report. I've spent enough time with you guys over the last week. I don't need any more time than I need today. I thought you'd like that, Sharon. So, just an update. These are updates that actually have been going up on the website. We've been trying to take pictures and put the updates out there. As you know, at every board meeting, I try to report kind of the highlights of it. Work that's been completed. The yacht club's moving along well for the interior work. Outside work is a little bit delayed, just obviously weather conditions. Not a big concern at this point. I mean, things are moving. When we get the weather holding us up from some masonry work and the paving work and those type of things, we feel that can be accelerated as the weather changes for us, and we still meet our deadline. If you roll through this, the front tower is now framed up. The tower trusses were set. Plumbing is the rough end of the plumbing is 98% complete. Mechanicals are well underway. Rough end, interior. I'm going to show you some pictures with some insulation. A lot of work's been going on inside the structure. So we're excited about where things are there. Show you some of the pictures. When I said the tower, this is the front tower of the building, and now the trusses are on the roof. So that was one they've been waiting to get closed in. Backside, all the windows and everything's wrapped up. The building's been wrapped up for several weeks now, so they're able to heaters in there and keep the work going inside. This is just some of the inside work. Lots of plumbing, lots of wood. It's a big structure with a lot of moving parts right now. This is inside one of the bar areas with some of this area is kind of like a tray ceiling. It's accentuated throughout the building. That's where ductwork obviously is. That's where the lighting and some of the audio elements will be. So it's really coming along nicely. Some of the ductwork. Again, we're trying to get different pictures of the facility so you can see some of the ductwork. The windows and then the doors and windows along the whole water side is beautiful. Not been stained yet, but it's a lot of windows. It looks beautiful first and second floor when you look at it. Really, without the columns that we had in the old building, with the way this is set up, it's really going to be a neat space. The area here that you're looking at, this is actually where you'll enter in the bar area, the separated bar area, and that's the same thing on both. Okay, Yacht Club. Next thing that we're working on, in addition to the construction work that's going on, one of the things that the board was concerned about was how the interior was going to be set up and look like. But we actually have a small team that's helping look at some of these things such as window treatments. And again, I'm getting into a little bit of minutia, but I've been asked the question, so I just thought I'd throw it out there. Seat cushion colors, what items and how they'll be displayed. Examples. Power Squadron has their casement that's actually in the main office now. We've had a Marlin that's been donated. We've got the boat club. A lot of folks have done. We have a lot of things accumulated over the years. So instead of just throwing it in there, we're going to try to make some sense of it. Dee Dee Rouse, Doug Slingerland, Marion Bickerstaff, Gary Miller have all offered to help with that effort. Really neat thing that goes along with that, one of the things that has been restored, is this ship that sat up above the upstairs bar. Okay? And Mark actually has restored that from stem to stern. So it's beautiful. It's about 9 feet in length. Put the new sails on it. A lot of little detail he went back in and refurbished. It's really stunning to look at. So with the size and shape of that, we're going to make sure that's put back into the new yacht club and where it's going to be reasonable to have it and those type of things. But these are just some of the things that community members have done. And he did that on his own without any. He took the ship in and just started restoring it without any hopes or questions about, getting paid for it or any of that. The board approved to go ahead and pay for his materials and such. But what a great guy! What a neat project! It's really going to accentuate the club. So we're excited about that. Some critical staffing positions we're working on right now. We're going through. I'll start at the bottom. We hired a new dock master, Ron Fisher. He's already knee deep into the work. We're excited. He's looking at things, coastal bay issues, marina issues, job descriptions. I mean, he's really delving in where we believe we need to be and going through those steps now, so we're ahead of it when the marina comes out. In addition, we've been through the interview process with the banquet/event coordinator. We're working out some details so we can finalize what direction we're going to head in there. And we've put ads out. We've had over 60 folks apply for the chef's position. So going through those.
60?
60. Now, please understand, just because they applied doesn't mean they're all 100% qualified, but I tell you, a lot of really, really neat resumes came in. We have folks applying from all over the country. We had a gentleman from California apply. He was really well qualified. But when you start going through, and with David's been doing a lot of phone interviews, Paul Suplee is helping us with that process, and it's going to be a multiple-step process before we pin down who the final candidate is going to be. But that's well underway. So these are some critical positions that we recognize need to be taken care of shortly, and we're getting close to finalizing. Okay. The other thing I want to give you on the yacht club, these are fresh off the presses today, just a little bit ago. The dashboard that I give out each month. The other thing I want to point out for the dashboard, I'm giving you two things. I spent a little bit of time this morning, early morning, trying to expand the dashboard so it's I know when I give it to you at 8.5, 11 with all these numbers, it's really hard to read. So what I did was expand it to a 8.5 by 14 and change the font a little bit. So hopefully that makes it easier to read. I'm not going to tell you it's super easy because there's a lot of information. The other element that you'll recognize is the second page that I've given you, which is pretty much a base recap of the numbers of the primary. We call it the Simplified Financial Dashboard because what it does is pretty much brings all the numbers from the front page, kind of the most important ones, to the bottom line. What is showing on here is we're good. We're right on budget with everything that's been approved. We actually have a contingency right now with all the expenditures of approximately $96,000. We have some items. One of the last items, you always have things come up at the very end. One of the only things that has not been finalized yet, you'll notice on the dashboard with all the details, has the TBD, and that's for the phone system. So we recognize that'll come out of those additional funds. But everything, we've tried to account for everything. Anywhere, even if there wasn't a cost change, but something I updated in the last couple of months, we made sure we put it on here. An example of that would be the epoxy flooring. If you recall, we talked a little bit about doing epoxy floors on the second floor, and that's just a preventative nature instead of the top floor. The epoxy floor helps in case there's a spill or a leak or something. It's an additional preventative maintenance effort to keep anything from going down to the first floor. So we put that on there. That would have been in change order 6, but we ended up it's a no cost change for us. We were ahead of it, and it seemed to work out. So, but I include it on there because it is something we talked. Okay, so these will be your numbers. If you have any questions once you go through them, you're welcome to give me a call or email or whatever we need to do.
Wasn't there a column for landscaping somewhere, or is that?
Don't believe we pulled it out of there. We recognize landscaping is going to come out of the contingency at the end.
Well, it was budgeted in the contract.
16
something
yeah.
as what I would assume is an allowance.
It would have been, and Marty, I wouldn't say it would have just been part of the overall
But I thought
contract.
it was one of these right side
Yeah, I mean, I can go back and look. There's about 16,000.
Yeah, that's what it was. I just was
Yep.
wondering why it fell out.
No, I can go back and double check that one. Does the larger size help a little bit? Change the font. I mean, it's still not easy as document 3, but it's just an overview for everything.
You're referring to signs. What signs are you talking about, Bob?
Signage on the building.
On the building
Yeah.
itself, on Ocean Hot Chocolate. Okay.
Is that okay? All right, jump to the quick update on the budget. Just so everybody knows where we are, and everybody at the table does, give an overall update. Budget finance meetings are complete. Recommendations were provided to the board Monday. I've got to tell you, and I'm going to list their names on the next slide, but this was by far, for the last 4 years, the best process when it came to working with the Budget Finance Committee. What was kind of, it's almost like the Super Bowl was. It was all geared up to be such a great Super Bowl. It was probably one of the worst. There was no energy. One team was completely flat. That was actually good for me because there was no negative energy. There was no, I mean, it was a great experience from a working with the committee. They were professional. They were upbeat about it. They offered solutions. We hammered through some things, but nothing was, it was a good process this year, the best of the 4 years. And I think the results showed from that. So I appreciate their work and the information they provide. There was no contentiousness or anything. And I bring that up because you all know that's a miserable process up to this one. And this one, last year was good. This year was much better. Review with the board, we completed that yesterday. So we've been through 2 long days, hammering back through. That includes rehashing what the Budget and Finance Committee gave us. So we kind of kicked through those. Where we are now is that you all are doing your final considerations. We have a couple of outstanding items that we're checking into. Example, 175 for the bridges. What's the exact number? Joe Moore's checking for the rental fee and the entrance fee, just to see if they're possible, and if there's some, what steps we'd have to take if the board decided to move in that direction. A number of those little pieces we're tightening up. The board is due to get back by Friday to me. It was decided, and I don't think that's changed. Tom, you can correct me, but there's not going to be a meeting for it. You'll just give me something in writing Friday, the email, or bring it by, and we'll just make those final changes. And they're the changes we talked about through the 2-day process. The next step, once you provide those, all of next week, we'll be tightening up all that information. Next Saturday is when we do the presentation to the membership. So that's a town hall style meeting at the community center on Saturday, and we'll go through the budget. We'll kind of run through the where it is, what got us there, and the steps and the final results. And then we'll have a week between that and the board meeting where the membership can share any concerns or questions, ask me, ask you as board members, and then the final vote on the budget actually happens Saturday the 22nd. Okay? So that's that, and once we get that approved, as you all know, the budget comes into effect May 1st.
The meeting on this 15th, is that 9 a.m. or 10? Okay.
9.
9. Oh.
Yep, 9 a.m. But you can come at 10.
Thank you.
Feel free. No, it's at 9. It should, 2 hours is pretty much where we budget, or time-wise, but if anybody wants to stay and talk longer, you know, sure. I just wanted to list budget finance, Dennis, Pat, Dale, Gene, John, Tom, and of course Bill, our board liaison. And then Art was in there every day. I took his name off. Art and I are staff, so we put our names out of it, so it's bigger. Everybody see these folks really did a good job this year, and we appreciate their work. Other happenings, I've been asked for some updates, so I just put them on one slide so I can make sure I give everyone an update at one time. Gillis property at the north gate, there was some question mark and some things came up about, if you recall, we talked about it a little bit, he had approached us to run his utility line right across the north gate, right across in front of or behind the pond actually, and then across the parkway pond, and then over to the pump station. We actually sat. I asked Mr. Gillis to come in and sit, and we talked about it to see other alternatives and solutions. Through that meeting, he elected not to take that path to go across our property there. So I believe he's going to take the alternative path, which is straight out 589, down 589, and then down back into our property line pump station. At least that's my understanding. He has not. He said he withdraws from crossing our property. Sandpiper contract, Tom and I have been talking back and forth with parties involved. We're going through in great detail. The latest iteration is looking at some of the insurance exposure. That's always fun, dry reading. So we're at that. That we have another meeting set up for this Friday with Steve Smethurst, who's our side attorney, to kind of get through that process. And then from there, we'll have a much better update to give everybody. A lot of it's just been reading and looking and reading. Propane short, Jay?
Yeah, whoever. One of the objects in sitting down in talking to Sandpiper, whoever they are, we were going to try and elicit some compensation from them in one form or another. Is that correct? Where is that? Where's that?
Excuse me. So people can hear me. That's still part of the documents that we're putting back and forth. No decisions have been made. As I found on my bill, and Marty found it on his, there's actually a line item on the bill ready for some kind of local tax that is being collected. And one of our questions is, where's that money going? There's like a municipal, I forget what the exact
Franchise fee.
Franchise fee. Thank you. There's a franchise fee box in there, and we're trying to determine. Nice that you've got that in there. Where are you sending the money? And just so we all are clear, it's our intent to ask them to eliminate that franchise fee in Ocean Pines. I don't think we want to backdoor bill people for use of right-of-ways that we already own. So we're trying to do something with that. So there are lots of moving pieces at this piece. None of them have been accepted or rejected. We're finally getting into the actual language. As soon as I've got something between the two lawyers that is at a point where it's worth looking at, I will be sharing it with the rest of the board so they've got it. Right now it's in track changes and it's a mess. So we're not quite yet ready to share it with you yet, but it won't be too long, much longer till we have that.
We don't have much.
We're running out of time. Yeah, we are.
Okay, the other question that I've had several calls about from our membership, propane shortage. I guess they've seen it in the news and it's been reported a couple places. So I checked with Chesapeake Utilities directly, which is actually the owner of Sandpiper. So the senior folks there, when I spoke to them last week, had no concerns. They have enough based on what they see the needs, even with the extended winter. They felt very comfortable and confident there was not a propane shortage for us here in this region. They've over the years built out tanks and storage areas that others chose not to because they were relying on having things shipped in. And during that construction, they kind of had the foresight to get ahead of it, and that's where they've already had their stockpiles. So that just want to make sure I share that with everybody. Drainage Task Force this month will be sitting down and going over the work that's been completed. We were doing everything, bringing everyone up to speed, and then trying to figure out what the next steps are. That concludes my work today. Yes, sir.
I see we don't have any financials for this report. I don't remember. When do we do the third quarter?
Quarterly, it'll be in February. At the actual February board meeting. We're still in the January board
I got that. But I mean, it's just there's no financials, and it's sort of critical with the budget. I'm not saying it's happened in recent history. I just remember when, 07, I think, 08, we approve a budget, and then the very next meeting, we would get a new forecast. And the new forecast made the budget that we just finished basically go in the trash can. And I would have loved to have seen some updated numbers before.
But you get the monthly numbers. What's that? Yeah, the monthly numbers you get, where, as you all know, we're performing well.
Well, I've
against
got
the budget.
those. Yeah, but we do it, usually do it. I didn't know when the quarterly report was, and they just answered it's February.
Yeah, we stay. I was a little concerned this morning. I'm kind of scrambling looking at it, and Art had to remind me, Bob, we don't have January included yet. You know, it's still too early in the month. And B, although it's February, it's still your January meeting. It's took that pressure off. So, good question. Yeah, in 2 weeks I'll be giving the quarterly.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
I couldn't say she's not on here yet.
Are you nervous? Are you nervous yet?
You should be. We ought to allow it. Free psychiatric.
I already went through.
Okay, the next activity that's going to go on here is a very special one, and I do want to take a step back and officially put in the record a thank you to Dan Statursky for all the years of service he provided in the various positions he held on the board, and quite frankly, giving him a little recognition for recognizing where he is in life and decisions he made to move on. We respect that. We respect all the work he did, and it gave us an opportunity to reach out to someone who's been involved with the community and watching this board work for years, and very, very happy to have been able to add Jeff Nepper to fill Dan's seat until August. And with that, I will turn it over to Joe Moore for the swearing in and whatever else you need to do for this show.
All right, Mr. Nepper, will you join me behind President Barrett?
I will. Picture.
You will raise your right hand.
I will.
I state your name.
I, Jeffrey Nepper,
Do hereby pledge
do hereby pledge
to serve with Ocean Pines
to serve the people of Ocean Pines
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and to adhere to the principles
and to adhere to the principles
as defined in the Ocean Pines corporate document.
as defined and to adhere to the principles as defined in the Ocean Pines corporate documents
Government Association.
which govern the association. Thank you. My wife was able to join us here today. Works for Wycomico County Court System. So, Kim, if you stand up.
She's the one that's going to be getting the trophy at some point for putting up with all this.
Absolutely.
Glad you could join us. It's great. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, public comment.
Oh, jeez.
Now, what kind of comment is that?
No, it's
It just came out.
It's
Joe, it's all yours.
I love this guy.
I'd like to address the issue that was brought up about the board of directors approving after the fact president's signature of the granting of the easement to the town sewer. I don't think the community even knows what the heck that even went wrong. I'd like to address it publicly, just so perhaps but isn't. That easement did not exist. Worcester County has decided to provide sewage treatment facilities primarily to business areas on the other side of 589, companies like Walgreens, 7-Eleven, McDonald's, the bank, Remax, the old shopping center, so businesses primarily. It's good to get treatment for those facilities because now they're on septic tanks that are not. However, I hope in the future that the board of directors get more concerned not benefit the county by granting them that easement. And the reason is we did not benefit the county is that the county is not going to spend a nickel of county money on anything they do over there. Everything they do is either going to build through the service area, and the people who are getting the connections are going to pay eventually. So we're not benefiting anybody. We're not benefiting the county. We're benefiting these big businesses, big and small. So, for example, suppose we had said to the county, we'd like $84,000, give you that piece of property. Maybe they said no, maybe they said yes. If they said yes, they would tack that $84,000 with what they're going to bill everybody connected to the other side, and that 84 would be a relative drop in the bucket. But that 84,000 could have meant a $10 decrease on everybody's assessment. So all I'm suggesting is that we give more thought to the people who pay the bills in Ocean Park before we act. And you might have indicated, as Bob did, Gil was turned down easy across our property. Cross side.
Go to 589. Hit the track running north 5.
But he still goes into the
County. It's a county system.
right.
In Ocean
The
Park.
Ocean Times sewage treatment.
Yes, sir.
Minor item, but, and I know this maybe a time, people out here, association, backs your head, they're also good.
Joe, you were looking at me when you said that last part.
He was.
With the exception of Sharon. The back and the front of her head.
Thank you, Jim.
He's talking about that facing.
That's right.
And our bylaws and resolution, the chairman here, I would remind him what I said sometime back. Bill Waco so insistent rewriting resolution. There is a resolution agenda development. Yet again, it said keep doing nobody. I guess it's not the way you're supposed to vote. I mean, I suggest that the board members read one resolution. If you don't want to follow them, change them. You can change them anytime.
Joe, I really appreciate you bringing these items up because it shows some insight, some interest, and people following along. The question I had as far as this easement item was concerned was, suppose the county would have said, nah, we're not going to give you, one red dime. Is there a possibility, or has the thought process ever gotten to the point whereby the county would go through eminent domain proceedings and really create a headache for the organization?
Let me suspend the rules for a moment. Joe, why don't you speak to this issue?
Right.
Use Sharon's mic.
Can I give my opinion first, please? Just expressing.
Sure.
Thanks.
Now, wait a minute. Do we have to vote on that first?
My opinion, I don't know what Joe was saying, that's what I was speaking for. He said the county can come out perhaps and try to condemn that property and take possession of it, but they can't just arbitrarily take the property and not compensate you. There has to be, in the end, if you refuse, go to court or something, and a jury or somebody decides if the property has value or no value, and they have to pay you. You can't just take your property and not
That's
pay
correct.
Well, and I can respond to that. Let me say, and the board members know this, that I had some participation with respect to this issue with Sonny Bloxham, who is the county attorney. I did inquire about the notion of whether or not the county would have paid Ocean Pines for the easement. And he said that the county would not have considered doing that. And the reason that they wouldn't is for the following. The easement is a 10-foot wide easement along the property line between our parcel and the Calvin B. Taylor Bank parcel. Under the regulations in zoning in Worcester County, there are side yard, front yard, and rear yard setbacks. This would, under the definition of the county, be a side yard setback. So therefore, if Ocean Pines had refused to grant the easement in its side yard, and the county would have entered an eminent domain proceeding, the likelihood, and I believe that it is practically positive, is that the easement would not be of any value because you can't build in your side yard. You have a setback. The easement's in the setback. There are easements, by the way, all over rear yards in Ocean Pines for utilities. The other thing which I respectfully disagree with Joe is the benefit to the Ocean Pines community of having the cessation of failing septic systems in a substantial number of businesses across Route 589. And a glaring example, I think, which is very evident to everybody, is Pines Plaza Shopping Center. That has had a jury-rigged failing system virtually for the last decade or more. And the proof is in the pudding with respect to the lack of redevelopment of that property. So, it is an honest disagreement between Joe's position and mine. I believe, respectfully, that the safe environmental use of properties that are service areas for this community is an important benefit to the community. I spoke with John Ross, who is the Assistant Public Works Director of the county. He verified what Mr. Bloxham said, and it seems to me that the exercise of forcing Worcester County into an eminent domain proceeding against Ocean Pines certainly does not inure to the benefit of our community relations with the county commission. So, I guess I've said enough.
Okay. Well, I have said this to the board, and I think I've already said it publicly, but I'll say it again. The realities are I should have talked to the board before I signed that document. There's no question about it. I had all the information that Joe just talked about. I had it in both ears, coming multiple directions, and I get out of night, I'll fall on it. The reality is I made a mistake, and we will try real hard not to do it again.
And Mr. President, I'll let you throw yourself under the bus, but I'm going to throw myself under with you. And that is that I reviewed the request. I reviewed the document. I sent it on, as I recall, to Mr. Thompson, and I said, this needs to be signed by the president and sent to the county commissioners. So it is at least partly my fault that I did not see to it that the proprieties were established.
Let's not let it happen again, Joe.
I will try not to.
And the drinks are on Joe.
Joe, now we're talking.
You're paying the bar bill.
I would do that, but I don't see that the bar is open.
No, we're going to BJ.
Oh, okay.
Can I have a motion about? No. All joking aside, was an error, and it's on me. I'm the one who signed it. Appreciate all the friends and family joining me under the bus. It was my. Okay, that's fine.
Public comments over here.
Yes.
comments are
Name and address.
Doug Slingerland, 8 Cove Lane,
Thanks.
Section 1, number 516.
Social Security number.
My comments are triggered by one of Bob's slides here mentioning drainage program. I've been here 20 years, and I've enjoyed the sustained, continuing maintenance program for the bulkhead, keeping the bulkhead in shape. However, I look upon the community as the ditches seem to be far more extensive and cover far more individual lots than bulkheads. And I was always wondering why we didn't have a crew that was dedicated solely for the continuing maintenance of those ditches. So if that's what the objective is now, I give you my vote of confidence.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Watch your cords
Right,
there.
Bill?
We thank you very much, and since we responded to Joe and responded to you as well, although the budget has not been voted on yet, there was, in fact, is now included in the draft budget the authorization. Bob asked for an authorization, 4-man team to be created to work purposely and only on the drainage work and for all the canals and communities. He said it's starting A to Z, and get to Z, go back to A, and start over again. So we have, as I said, the final vote for the budget hasn't happened yet, but that was a big part of our discussion over the last 2 days, was creating that team. And as of now, it is still in budget for next year for that team to be created. So thanks for your comment. Any other public comment? Okay, we will move on to Resolution M09, second reading. Marty? I understand Jim has some things to say as well, but I'll turn it over to you.
I hope he does, because I know as much about this as I do brain surgery. I just sort of went to the last meeting of the Bylaws and Resolution Committee, because Dan was traveling and asked me to fill in for him, which I gladly did. And one of the things that's been on the table, and off the table, and on the table, and off the table for a long, long time has been this Resolution M09. And it's past the first reading. And so I'm trying to help move it along. If we may, we do have Mr. Trumbull here who really knows more about the documents than us collectively. I think Joe might even agree to that. I don't know.
Oh, I expect I do.
And get his comment on it, if that's all right with the board.
It's fine with me. I have no objection. Anybody have an objection to that? No. Jim, why don't you join us up here and use one of the microphones?
Yeah, I don't want to go over a long history, but Marty made some mention of it. This is something that's been going on for almost 2 years. The board has before it a first reading draft resolution dated September of 2013. There is no current resolution pertaining to the search committee. The search committee is only referred to in the bylaws, section 5.02 of the bylaws. It simply says that the president appoints a committee by February 1st. The committee's task is to try and solicit at least two candidates for every vacancy. Gets a list to the secretary by May 10th. That's the sum and substance of the directions given to the search committee. The draft resolution, I'm speaking for the committee when I say this, we believe that the draft resolution provides a structure that meets the needs of the community, the association, and meets the expectations of membership of the association. And the key points are that meetings are held with notice to the association members. There's a broad description of the kind of outreach that's expected of the search committee. The solicitation is to be neutral. There is provision for staff support. It's not there's detail in there about staff support, except it says in so many words that staff support is to be provided. And finally, there's a after-action report that's to be generated, provided to the board, which includes such things as recommendations as to how to improve the process. So, again, without going back over all the history of it, we did receive comments of a draft resolution for the board in July. Those came from President Terry. We did make a couple of changes, relatively minor changes, but changes to the draft and resubmitted it in September. Another reason for resubmitting was that there were two board members between July and September. So at any rate, that's in summary form. That's where we are. As I said, we've had comments. One set of comments has been available to the entire membership for some time, and we responded to those comments. I don't know if Mr. Terry or anybody else wants to go through those comments. That's the status we have now. And as I said, it's been 2 years. We'd like to get on with it. If the sense of the board is we don't need a resolution, let's state that. If the sense of the board is we need one, let's get there.
Question, if I may, because I don't know the answer. But, I mean, some of these, if they're not addressed in a certain period of time, don't they just go back to what they were?
Well, there's nothing to go back to on this case.
Is brand new.
It's brand new.
It's totally
Okay.
brand new.
Yeah,
The second reading of brand new resolution.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
If we vote it up today, it's written.
one comment: 2 readings is a requirement, minimum requirement. You know, you don't have to sit here today and make a final decision on the wording of an acceptable draft. You can have as many readings as you want to, but please don't go too many agendas into the future.
As I understand, the committee wants to move it, right?
That's correct.
The only question I have at this point, Jim, and to the committee, and if the document is fine as far as I'm concerned, there's only one issue out there that I don't, just organizationally and operationally, I think folks who are being approached or are asking for information about possibly running for the board should have the right to do that without having their name made public. And I don't have any problem with a public meeting, none. It's just I don't know how to protect the names of people. If I'm on the committee and we're sitting around having a public meeting and I say, well, Jeff Mepper came in, well, then it's in the public that Jeff Mepper is thinking about running for the board. Or I reached out to Jeff and Jeff said, yeah, I want some information. How operationally can they manage that so that, because I frankly I'm fairly serious about this. I think it is unfair for someone who's simply trying to figure out whether they want to run or not, that their name be put out in a public session. And now maybe they use letters, numbers, potential candidate number 1, and the committee knows who that is. I mean, that, as you know, that is my only issue I still have with this document.
Now there's something I don't understand. If somebody calls me, based on this resolution, if somebody calls me and says, you're new on the board, you ran, how do you like, that's great, a lot of good people helping out the community. Well, I'm interested. I now have an obligation as an officer or board member of this organization that person becomes public. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the reality is, if you take back to, public meeting is not the issue here. It is just what you said, Jack.
Right.
I call you up and say, hey, you're worth serving, I'm thinking of running. And you say, hey, get hold of the search committee.
No, I say let's meet or talk.
Meet or whatever.
Yeah.
Once that name is turned over to the search committee, then in their meetings, which are public meetings, I just want to protect that person's interest until they have, under Section F, said the individual has the right to announce their intention that the search committee is not authorized to release any candidate information to the public. But by sheer mentioning somebody's name in an open meeting, you have violated F. So how do we handle that? Now, I'm not trying to be squirrely here, but how do we handle that? Anybody got any ideas? I mean, Sharon, what's your thought?
I have the same concerns upon request of press, request of another board member, request of a member of the committee, request of a owner of the Ocean Pines. Who's the request from? And then the secretary should provide the names of members who have submitted a candidate application. So application is when it's done, but who can make that request? That's what I didn't
The process is twofold. Number one, let's understand. You can self-nominate yourself to run for the board without going through the search. You can turn an application in at the admin building or to the secretary of the board, and that application gets put in and is turned in with the rest of the names, and that name is not released until it has been checked or they got their dues paid and they're fully authorized, and then there's an announcement made as to who the candidates
If
are.
the secretary of this organization was Terry, not
Yeah.
if I came up to Terry and says, Terry, who's on the committee? I'm making a request to her. Now,
You mean who the candidates are or who's on the
who
committee?
not on the committee? I'm sorry. Who has filled out an application? It says upon request. Whose request?
Can I?
Sure, please.
They're two different issues.
Yeah, they are. That's
And
two
they are,
different
but
issues.
there's
Those
you
are
asked
two
what
different
the
issues.
concern.
Let's
Yeah.
stay with one at a time.
All right.
Okay.
I can't give you a very good answer on the open meetings discussion of names. I mean, an open meeting is an open meeting. Unless you want to somehow devise a method, the committee devise a method of being able to communicate either in a meeting or by email among individuals the names. I really can't solve that problem.
Okay, well, let me ask the question. I threw out the solution, a rabbit trail, bunny trail here for a potential solution to that. Is the committee in violation if they assign a number or a letter to be associated with someone who may have interest so that they can have the discussions in public, but without having to divulge the names? I just don't think it's fair that somebody who's been contacted has to have their name put out in public.
I've heard Mr. Moore in the past say he's not going to give advice in meetings, but
Well,
I don't know if he would care to comment on this or not.
well, and the board. You talking about these board meetings? This board meeting?
No,
a committee.
You're talking about-
This is a committee meeting.
Yeah.
Because this guideline clearly says they're to have open public meeting, which is fine with them. But also, they're not supposed to release any information on the candidates.
In my judgment, Marty and I have had this discussion as well. I think it's a personnel issue, and think about this. Joe Moore makes an application under the present provisions of the resolution upon request, whoever it is, Sharon. My application is made public, but after my application is vetted by Ruth Ann Meyer, she finds out I haven't paid my dues for 2 years. So the reason that I cannot run for the board, even though I've submitted my application, is because I haven't paid my assessments. I believe that's hurtful, even though it is public record in a sense. I think it's hurtful to have that a subject of a public discussion as opposed to being in your records in the association. In my judgment, the provision of discussions of personnel issues being in closed meetings applies to your committees as well as the board. So if the definition of personnel is as I perceive it, I would think that the committee could vote to hold that discussion in private. And they do it the same way you all. They say we have a discussion of a matter that is allowed under the Homeowner Association Act to be in private. It's a sensitive issue, and this is kind of an editorial comment. It's a sensitive issue for someone's personal information to be available until he becomes a bona fide candidate. And having done this years ago in a Worcester County election, once you put yourself out there, as you all did, you all, as long as they're not slandered or some other way impugned upon, you become public figures, and therefore you're public. But it's not at that position when the search committee is taking applications from potential board members, in my judgment.
Sure.
I've sat on this committee, Joe, years ago. And what we did was sit around and say, gee, I think we should talk to this person, and this one's got great experience, but maybe this one doesn't have. And we hash things around ourselves. Now, or so-and-so's talked to me, I'm going to meet him again Tuesday. This is the kind of discussion that occurs. And I kind of see your point. It's confidential. They've asked me, we're going to meet him Tuesday. Do we want that stuff out in the public? Or is this something this committee needs to be able to talk about?
Well, this right up here clearly points out, and I agree, this search committee is not a filter. This search committee does not decide who to accept an application from, not to accept an application. It's not their job to do any screening and sort of screening. They don't do any screening at all. My only concern at this point is what I have said just a few minutes ago. They're in a meeting. It's a public meeting. They're trying to function as a committee. Part of their job is not just to sit there and wait for somebody to call. They also are an outreach of information to people. And as they outreach, if they're sitting at a table and they're trying to talk about, well, I'm going to go talk to Jeff Knepper about running for the board. Well, then it is in a public session that Jeff Knepper is going to be contacted. Or Jeff has shown interest in running for the board. That is in a public session. I simply believe that someone who is being approached or is simply gathering information about running shouldn't have to have their name used in a public session. And the committee ought to be allowed to craft a methodology that will allow those names to be protected. I don't want them to be in violation of F when they don't use the names in a meeting. That's all I'm getting at.
He just said he can do it.
Well, God,
We got an opinion.
Only if they go in closed session.
Yeah, but that's the only way you're going to be able to do
Okay,
it.
but question for Mr. Moore. Now, how do you justify someone being personnel association? This is simply a discussion of who the committee may approach. There's no relationship whatsoever in the
Well,
association.
Webster's.
I just happen to have a definition of personnel. And it fits. Personnel in the traditional sense, Marty and I had a discussion. Personnel in the traditional sense is Bob Thompson because he's staff and you hire
He's
him,
an employee.
and therefore
Under the
he's
code,
personnel.
he's
I got
an
news for
employee
you.
under the
Under the
code.
definition, everybody at this table, and technically under certain circumstances, anybody who is a member of the association can be considered personnel under the definition because it says a member of an organization.
Yeah, but you have to have some relationship other than simply being a member.
And your relationship is that you are at least being vetted at your own request or at somebody else's request.
Not necessarily at your own.
Well, or at somebody else's request at being a public figure in the association.
You're talking about the search committee deciding on its own who may be someone to approach.
Right.
The unilateral decision of someone on the committee or the committee as a whole, that doesn't make a personnel association.
No. The person who becomes an applicant.
Okay,
That's under your definition.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay,
If you
I'm
put
saying.
Put in your application, you're now seeking to become a person of participation in the membership. That's why it has in there the disclosure if the secretary is asked, well, who has applied. That's why that provision is in there. That person isn't personnel of the association at the point.
I understand. When he becomes a candidate, in my judgment.
This is prior to candidate.
Well, he becomes an applicant.
Between the 10th, that's right, between the 10th and the 15th, or after the 15th, when the decision, the vetting has been completed. That's what that provision pertains to.
Right. Well, I understand.
I know now why this has taken 2 years to get through.
The problem, Marty, is we never had this discussion.
Right.
It's been pulled back.
And Jim, I do have a solution to the preliminary issue. How many members you got?
There will be 6 this year, as soon as the board
We
approves.
need to appoint your 6.
Okay. Then you have to have 3 or less discuss a person at a certain time, then it's not a committee meeting. Jim loves that. That drives him nuts.
I'm not going to get into it.
I know you're not.
Well, no, you
That should be
you answered the question.
those who are
in
at
another
Taylor.
topic. We've now got you on record for something else.
I know.
If it
I
ever
know.
comes up.
All right, let's get back to the particular issue that, at least in my position, I don't want committee that I'm hoping we will approve shortly at this meeting to be in violation of their own guideline that we may vote up here today. Section F says the search committee is not authorized to release any candidate information to the public. Now, does that mean potential candidate? Does that mean somebody who's turned over an application? What does that mean? In the wording of this document, what does that word candidate mean? Because I've already said it. I don't think someone who's simply looking into it should have to have their name mentioned in an open meeting
We know
for
what
the
a
public to
candidate
know that they're interested.
Well, Mr. President,
is.
Well, a candidate could be only after you fill out the form and turn it in. Well, then I'm suggesting this needs to protect more than just candidate.
Candidate or candidate, potential applicant, whatever. The intention is that the search committee does not communicate anything. That's the intention. It may not be written
So does the candidate, does
extensive
the
enough.
search committee allowed to go into a closed session so that they are able to have open communication with each other? Who do you think would make a good member of?
Well, number one, Sharon, I don't know when your committee made reference to it, but prior to 2010, was, to the best of my knowledge, it was 2008 bylaws is where the search committee was created. Prior to that, it was a nominating. As far as I can tell, minutes of board meetings, it was never a 2009 search committee, although there should have been. The only reference to a search committee I can find is 2010, 11, 12, and this past year, 13.
I don't remember.
But a nominating committee should have been entirely different than a search committee. A search committee has no authority whatsoever to consider who may be involved.
They are outreach. They are outreach. They're allowed to give out information. Only thing I'm trying to do, and now that we've gotten this far in this, that I'm looking to insert the words any potential candidate or candidate information to the public, and that there is a consensus or at least an understanding that this wording allows that committee to function in a way, however they figure out how to do it. And I'm not necessarily saying closed session. They could do coding system. They could do all kinds of things.
They could look
I
around.
just don't think somebody's name should have to be made public simply because they might be interested in running for the board. I just don't think it's fair to the people who might be interested. That's my only thing here. The rest of this document, I'm fine with. I just don't think they have the right to put that barrier in the way of somebody who's simply trying to find out what it's like to serve on the board. I don't think that is fair. That's all. That's my only point.
I don't know if we want to try to redraft the provision now, but what needs to be done, and I understand what Mr. Terry is, I think, trying to do. The search committee is not authorized to release any information regarding applicants or candidates, people being contacted or anything like that. How you put that in words, I don't know if anybody wants to sit here.
I put the word potential candidate, which could cover all of those.
What paragraph are you?
I'm under F on page 2.
Page 2.
The end of the sentence, the search committee is not authorized to release any, and I'm inserting potential candidate, comma, or candidate information to the public.
Any potential candidate or
or candidate.
Any release of that information should funnel through the secretary of the board of directors of the organization, and that's covered in another part of this document. And that way, this committee is not violating their own guidelines. If they can find a way, it's up to them how they do it, that they don't use the names of the people that have shown interest. I just don't think it's fair to them. I really don't. And I'm seeing a lot of heads go up and down in the audience that they agree with. But Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, couple of points.
There's enough out there.
Number one, speaking only for myself.
So
I don't care. Potential candidate, talk, use my name, I don't care. Having said that, I will readily agree that others might feel different. And I believe that their view should be protected. So I'm agreeing with you. And it should extend, in my view, to candidates and potential candidates. How the committee does it is how the committee does it. Is how they do it. But the guiding principle is those things can be kept confidential to a point. Now, at some point, maybe when they become a candidate, but it's certainly at some point it's public. That's it.
if somebody's turned in an application, then
That's it.
That's it. They've
That's
done
fine.
it.
To
Now,
clarify, once an application is turned in and they are deemed, they paid their association fee, so therefore they're deemed eligible to run, is that when the names can be released, or is it on the 15th of May?
That work is done, verification of that is done after the self-nominating period is over.
So in other words, that's May 10th. Everything has to be in by May 10th. And by May 15th, the secretary will verify that these people who submitted applications are available. Then those names can be released.
Unless
Is that
they
what we're
release
saying?
it
Is that what we're
themselves.
saying? I'm
Unless
trying to
they-
understand it.
Unless they release it themselves.
Unless they release it themselves.
Hang on here. Okay. Let's start it back first, so to speak. The secretary does not do the release, not we know it. But the May 15th date is the date of the records that the secretary is used to determine the eligibility.
Right.
He has to wait, although maybe some question about that in some people's minds. He has to wait until May 15th term before he determines if the candidate meets the eligibility requirements. The release of candidate information is available starting May 10th, request to the secretary, up through the time that he releases the actual candidate list. Let me try
I don't
again.
understand that. I'm sorry.
Well,
Lost.
he has to wait until May 15th, he or she has to wait until the secretary has to wait May 15th, so that's the as-of date for the records to determine eligibility. Let's say the secretary waits until the 20th, takes till the 20th, whatever reason, takes the 20th to determine eligibility. From May 10th to May 19th or the morning of May 20th, if somebody asks for who has submitted an application, he can authorize that release.
It's mandated to authorize.
I believe it says that.
And
If
the
requested.
secretary, if requested, okay.
requested.
Why would you do that and not get them vetted first, that they're eligible? I'm just asking.
The individual has put forth their name as an application for candidates. It's if you will, it's similar to a public election. You become public knowledge. You go down to Snow Hill and file for candidacy. You're public knowledge as of then.
Honestly, I don't have any problem with the May 10th, May whatever dates, and the secretary turning over to the elections committee the roster of people.
So by
who are
May
then running.
10th, there's a list turned into who?
Secretary.
The secretary. The secretary has them. And if I wanted to know, I call Terry and say, okay, Terry, who's on the list?
She would have
And
to,
she would, because I am a member of the association, she'd have to release that information to me.
right, and I, as a
and-
potential candidate, willingly signed the application and turned it in.
By May 15th, she has to check and be sure they are eligible by their association
No
fees being
sooner
paid.
than May.
No sooner than May 15th. So May 15th or 16th might be the Sunday, the 15th.
There
She
could be
is in
some
there.
issues that are still sitting there that the candidate wasn't even aware of that they need to take care of so that they're clean going in. It gives a 5-day period for that to be cleaned up. We want anybody who wants to run have a right to run.
Gotcha.
That's the idea.
But Tom, if I may ask,
Sure.
if it's released on if the requirement's to release on the 10th, but they're not fully vetted until the 15th, there's a 5-day window when there may be something there that they're either unaware of that was missed, that because they're on the morning of the 10th, I can name people around here that are going to make a phone call and say, who are the candidates? And if this requires them to release it, and on the 13th, after whoever the secretary is at the time speaks to Ruth Ann and finds there's a discrepancy in a bill or something, that candidate's out there, and it isn't resolved because that person's out of town, then this information about that individual's floating out there that they're not on the 15th, they're...
The 10th, if I
Does that
can,
make sense?
if I can
Why?
change your phraseology just a little bit. On May 10th, it is a list of people who have applied. They are not the candidates yet. They have applied to be a candidate.
I guess the point or question I would have, why would you not put 15th and 10th as the same, whatever date, either the 10th or the 15th, and allow 5 days prior to that for the vetting, and whatever that date is, when it goes public, they've been vetted. Why not protect our
We
members?
asked that question to the committee.
In other words, the question. No.
I'm with Bob on this one.
Pretty simple, at least the way I'm hearing it. Why would we not make the date the same date? Why the 10th and the 15th?
How embarrassing it would be for somebody to find out, they didn't know that they were
why-
behind or something.
The only way you can make the date the same is to really eliminate the disclosure of applicants.
Correct, well, that's my
You
point.
can't do it any other way.
Understood. So they're due by the 10th. The release for the names, potential candidates, whatever you call them, will be on the 15th or thereafter. Why release on the 10th when they're turned in? What's the advantage of risking? I don't see any advantage.
What's the risk?
If there's a discrepancy somewhere,
The risk is to the
the
applicant.
candidate. Correct.
Well,
Why
not
not
the candidate, the applicant.
the applicant? Why not protect that member, that applicant, that whomever you call them for that 5-day period? So if there's any discrepancy, they have an opportunity to correct it prior to the release of the name.
Why do we have to protect that?
Out of courtesy, out of respect, out of the right thing to do, moral, ethically, I could just make a long list. It's the right thing to do. That's the simplest thing.
All right, let me respond to that this way. There's instructions that go along with the application form. One of the instructions reads, and I will try to read it as it says here, board candidate must be an owner of record on January 1st year of election and not have any unpaid annual charges or votes suspended by the board of directors as of 15th. Man, that's pretty darn simple. If the candidate, potential applicant or applicant that and understand that, too bad.
But you're right. No, you're absolutely right. As of the 15th. So why don't we make the 15th the day we release the names? Why do it on the 10th? Following what you said, I completely agree with that. They should know it's in writing.
Right.
Why not make the 15th the release date? What's the 10th? What's the 5 days
So
earlier?
what you're advocating is that we simply do away with any disclosure, submitted applications, and go only with a release of candidates by the secretary. That's the consensus of the board. That's fine with me.
We, as the association, should try to vet and assist our membership, our applicants, whatever you call them, in making sure their candidacy can be moved forward without embarrassment. And that's on the staff side to help them do that once we know the names of them. Having that week to do it, that 5-day period, grace period, I think is only reasonable.
Well, let me call
I
on
think
Joe.
the staff responsibility is to facilitate the candidate's presentation to the membership.
Right.
I don't think staff has any relationship whatsoever to the eligibility of that. Go ahead, John.
Jim, let me ask you a question. Other than what I suppose is the obvious intent for transparency, what is the purpose of having, whoever it is, Sharon's question on the request of who, but what is the purpose of having a public disclosure of people who have filed an application when they don't become a candidate. I mean,
Before they don't become a candidate.
yeah, I mean,
Before
no,
they're not vetted as a candidate.
yeah, no, what this says is, under my scenario, unless this has changed, I make an application, and for some reason I am determined not to be eligible. So I have filed an application, but I can't run. Under your last provision of the resolution, it says, upon request, the secretary will say that Joe Moore filed an application. And then they'll say, well, why isn't he a candidate? And then they'll say, well, he's not qualified to be a candidate. I question the purpose. I don't question the purpose of having, because as I said, once you become a candidate, you're free game. You know, you're fair game. But an applicant who, for whatever reason, can't qualify or decides to withdraw for personal reasons or whatever, I don't really understand the necessity or really the benefit of having his application public now.
It's at least in part to try and avoid the public guessing game that sometimes goes on as to who's filed an application, who's going to be candidates. That's part of the reasoning behind it.
Well, but if I thought it was to avoid the kind of the good old boy syndrome, somebody hadn't been chosen. But if I'm not chosen by the search committee, I can still become a candidate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The search committee has no.
So I mean, it's a free field. It's a level playing field. It just seems to me it seems to me kind of intrusive, for lack of a better word, that an applicant's name is put out there when he hadn't made it to the position of being a candidate.
Okay,
Where is the May 10th date in here? As to where
Right here.
it's in that section. Bylaw.
It's in
Yeah,
the
it's in the
bylaws.
bylaw.
502 of the bylaws.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question. Is there I mean, the bylaws say that they'll make application not later than May 10th.
I don't have my copy in front of
And then
me.
it
Let's say
states
yes.
the candidate,
I
if the
represent
candidate
it.
meets the requirements and is willing to serve as a director, the secretary shall verify, and it says here, as of May 15th. I mean, why do we announce anything before the 15th?
Well, that's what Bob is
That's
saying.
what I'm
and I know
saying.
that's Sharon saying.
I mean, that seems simple enough. And I'm not as
If
familiar
they
with
want to go to somebody and say, I'm running as president, that's their business. But we,
I mean, I
as an
would think-
association, does not announce it
I
15.
think if it meets the bylaws, it meets the bylaws. So I
Yeah.
personally think I've not met anybody that thin skin would ever run.
The candidate application, this is from paragraph 5.02,
Right.
C. A sentence from there. The form shall be submitted to the committee no later than May 10th and shall state the candidate meets the requirements of paragraph A above. I'm sorry, the committee shall submit a list of candidates to the secretary no later than May 15th. The applications have to be to the committee or through the committee by the 10th, and from the committee to the secretary by the 15th. The secretary, the 15th date is also applicable with regard to the secretary's vetting of the candidate.
So under section 6D, upon request, the secretary shall identify that date is May 15th. That date is not May 10th.
It would be May 15th.
Then we don't have a problem.
Well, yes, you do, because
You said.
what's being said here is that there's the sentiment among some people that you don't want any release other than a release of candidates, actual candidates, not applicants, actual candidates by the secretary. That's the only release of information you want. Not when I say what I mean. There have been comments by several people, including the attorney of the association, that should not be. There's no good reason to release anything other than a list of candidates by the secretary.
this is where, all right, let me see if I can lay out the dynamic here. On the 10th of May, all of the applicants have submitted something either directly to the not using the search committee, or they've turned it into the search committee.
Right.
On May 10th, those names have been made available, and the question then becomes, there is some vetting going on as to whether or not they're authorized to run, starting on May 11th, correct? Am I right?
Yeah.
Hey, Tom,
Just making sure I understand.
I think I may have it.
Okay, well, I just want to get the timeline
Might
here.
have it simple. So
Because I don't want Terry violating the rules either. So, it's May 11th.
Now, hang on. Look, Marty.
Go ahead, Marty.
NM9, under candidate search responsibility secretary, blah, blah, 6. C, the association secretary shall notify each applicant of acceptance or rejection of the candidate's application prior to the public release of the candidate's names. Why do we have D in there at all?
Good question.
Why don't you strike D?
Well,
Marty, where
Is-
right here, 6.
D is
That's a
upon
very good
request,
question.
and then Sharon's got a wonderful question, and that by who? The secretary shall identify the name of the members who have submitted candidate applications. Who cares who submitted a candidate application? Let's just cross it out.
Again, I want to back up. Let's make sure we're following the right sequence. By the bylaws, and I'm not going to comment on whether we follow them, by the bylaws, the cutoff date for an application is 10th.
Right.
And the committee has from the 10th to the 15th to get any application that it has received to the secretary. The secretary takes records as of the 15th to determine whether there's whether the applicants are eligible candidates. There is no date, maybe in the.
There is, and then they go on
But the secretary has until the 1st
to June.
to vet and release a list of candidates. What we're really saying now, and I think that, I don't know, nobody's raised their hand necessarily. The consensus is forget about releasing applicant information and only release of candidate information.
And I don't see what's wrong.
I know.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, I think it's, it leads to Bob's concern about embarrassment, which is good, although frankly, if you're going to run for this board, you probably want to make sure that everything's up to speed. But that's okay.
If you're not paying your dues and you're embarrassed.
And quite frankly, if he doesn't get, she, in this case it's she, Terry doesn't get the names from until the 15th, then D can stay in there because it's the 15th we're talking about. It's not the 10th.
No.
No, it's not.
Well, then it's got to come out.
Take out.
Take out D.
And C should have.
Marty, make a motion to adjust this
Wait,
document.
wait,
to make
wait,
it
wait,
D1.
wait.
I'm not
Before
doing
you make
anything
any
until-
motions,
Well, then,
I
Until
have a
I get the
comment.
okay.
yes, ma'am.
On
He
C,
comes out.
if we take out D,
Yes.
on C, if I understood you correct, Jim, the association secretary has to June 1st to publicly release the names. Is that what that says?
Well, to get it to the elections committee, which is a simultaneous more or less.
All right, so should that not be a tagline to C? The association secretary should notify each applicant of the acceptance or rejection of the candidate's application prior to public release on or before June 1st.
Yeah.
You can't do that, or you can just say per the bylaws.
Well, let's just, it's a good idea, yeah. On or before June 1st.
How about by June 1st instead of on or before?
I like that.
Application
before
prior
could be the
to
15th.
public
June
release
1st.
of
That's
the
even better.
candidate's names
even better.
on
Well,
June.
by June 1st might mean it's just June 1st.
That's
If
correct.
it's on
That's what it
before,
means.
it could be 25th of May, whenever he's got the information.
Oh, that-
Or she. Just because we have a she.
Make it uniform.
Or before.
I think
That's-
June 1st is a good way of doing it. That's the day.
How about this? That-
Okay.
Why don't we quote the bylaws, not later than June 1st? And here comes the motion.
Yes, sir.
I move. Paragraph C is changed to read. Association secretary shall notify each applicant of the acceptance or rejection of the candidate's application prior to the public release of the candidates' names not later than June 1st.
Could I ask you to add to that section F, the insertion of the words potential candidate?
But let's one paragraph at a time.
Okay.
D, remove it.
Do I have a second for that motion?
Wait a minute, there's more coming. We're going to go to what you suggested.
Oh, to F? Okay.
Which was at
F.
C,
Section.
F?
Yes.
Page 2.
Okay,
4F.
can you read it? Tell me.
It says the search committee is not authorized to release any potential candidate, comma, or candidate information.
Potential
Potential
candidate
candidate, comma, or
or
candidate.
candidate information to the public. That's my motion. Was there a second?
Any further discussion?
Can I
Sure you can get in here.
I
We're
meant to ask you
discussing,
before I did
absolutely.
it.
We're going to violate all kinds of rules here today. We're just going to talk amongst ourselves. Here it is.
is not authorized to release applicant, comma, potential candidate or candidate. Insert the applicant in there.
Where was that? F?
Applicant,
Potential
applicant, potential candidate, or candidate.
applicant,
Good.
potential candidate, or candidate information to the public.
For the association.
Okay.
Well, we won't tell anybody about
We won't tell them you're running, Joe.
your illegal trailer.
We okay?
I will second that.
Well, Bill actually already.
Oh,
the
Bill,
second
thank
one.
you.
That's okay.
That's fine. If he's seconded, great. As
All
long
right.
as it's
Let's
seconded.
make sure we're clear. Marty, go through it again.
Oh man.
Go with
F.
Go. Start with C, D, and then F.
We're going to start. We're going to start right in page 2.
Okay.
F. While nothing will preclude an individual candidate from announcing their intention at any time, comma, the search committee is not authorized to release any applicant, comma, potential candidate, comma, or candidate information to the public. Page 3. C. The association secretary. Try that again. The association secretary shall notify each applicant of the acceptance or rejection of the candidate's application prior to the public release of the candidate's names no later than June 1st. Strike D.
Marty, not later.
Not later than, sorry.
Okay. That's the motion on the table. It's been read twice and seconded.
Did you get it?
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Now, does that qualify as a second reading?
That is the second reading. Yes, it is.
You want this?
Yes.
I'll wait for you to move.
You want to wait just for a second?
If we took this long to decide to dial
You did it.
911, this
I ain't bringing
would
this up
around a
again.
long time ago.
I'm
Yes,
not
we did.
sure.
Has to
Are
be
you
amended.
approving resolution?
Yes.
Oh, well, that was not the motion.
No.
Motion was to
I moved it as now
Okay,
written.
now I need a motion to approve. Okay,
Tom,
I can't do it.
No, I with hesitance, I'm going to point out that there was some question, in particular from yourself, about the submittal of applications part in here in particular. In particular, on page 2, the subparagraph D near the top is before D. There's some concern about that. And I don't, that deals with the actual turning in, how
Where was it? Can you give me
Page
Page
2,
D.
D, page
D near the
2,
top,
D at the
too.
top.
Yeah. I may have had a concern with it, but if nobody else did, I'm okay.
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 All right.
Like I said, the only thing I had left on this document, as far as I was concerned, was the.
Okay.
Can we change the rules now to get Mr. Trumbull away from the
Well,
table?
can I get rid of Can I make
But
one
we
more
may need
comment?
him back later.
All right, be nice to Jim. He works too hard.
One more comment. Not comment. recommendation or suggestion. When we went over to the current book of resolutions and rewrote resolutions, etc., the prior practice of submitting every resolution to our attorney, Mr. Moore, was discontinued. And it has went over to a request kind of thing. My recommendation or suggestion to the board is that this resolution, because it deals with a critical part of the association, in particular elections, or the election process, that it go to Mr. Moore for his
I think that's an
signature. Now,
excellent
whether you
idea.
do that before or after it's signed off by the board, I'll leave that. I'll leave that to you folks. But
This will
I
be
do
easy.
recommend.
I have a motion.
No.
I do recommend Mr. Moore get it.
The
Go
motion
ahead.
is that we accept this as the second reading as amended, and after approval of the wording by our council.
No. It goes to council, it comes back to the table.
Yeah, I guess if I may ask,
Yeah.
the decision to amend is, I think the process is good. I think going to Mr. Moore is good. But I think our membership, we ought to put the amended document on the website between now and the next board meeting.
Roger.
Give Mr. Moore time to review it. Our members should have time to look
I
at it.
withdraw
in
my
case there's-
motion.
Good.
In case there's any questions, and
I
it
just
this
hope I live
be
to
final
see it.
reading, we go for the February meeting as the final reading. So our general membership who aren't here, may not be watching, have a chance to look at it and share any concerns.
Good call. I'm sure
I'm
they're
not trying to
anxiously
put it off,
standing at
but-
their computer.
Well, I'm just pointing out, we do the amendment, we put it on the website, Joe Moore looks
Got it.
at it, and we put it as a top. of the next
Okay,
board
this is
meeting.
going to be, we passed the wording as it is. It will be forwarded to, put on the website. Final reading will be at our next board meeting. Darn it, I wanted to get through this today. But okay,
Can we give it a 5-minute time limit?
we gave it a shot. All right,
Day.
thank you. Now, Jim, you had some other updates.
Oh,
for us, right?
30 seconds.
2, 3. You didn't?
No, 30 seconds.
Not for this meeting? No. Okay. All
So
right.
that means you
Jim,
gotta
thank
come
you very
back.
much. I'm sorry I
Hey.
failed you.
All right, moving on. New business. Mr. Bill.
Yeah. Motion, the Board of Directors hereby authorizes refinancing of the outstanding loan with SunTrust Bank under the following terms and conditions. The outstanding principal as of 2014, approximately $200,000 of loan with SunTrust Bank, shall be financed with an internal loan from the Ocean Pines Association utilizing reserve funds. Maturity of the date of the loan shall remain the same as the SunTrust note and therefore due in June 2014.
2017.
2017. Sorry. The interest rate shall be adjusted annually and be equal to the average rate of return being earned by the association on its reserve funds as of December of each year to coincide with the timing of budget preparation. The interest reset date shall be as of May 1st of each year to coincide with the association's fiscal year. In addition, the general manager is hereby authorized to close out the SunTrust loan, which may be paid at no additional cost.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved in second. Discussion.
only that I was for it in June. Still for it.
Okay.
May I ask a question, just to make sure I understand? You do not have a prepayment penalty?
No, we do not. We do not.
Yeah, that's all that.
What this in essence does is saves the organization the interest that we've been paying the bank, which can be inured right back to our members through potential reduction in dues.
And still being taken in the budget process,
Right.
so that we're not just paying it off and, there was an obligation.
We're paying it back. We're going to pay
We're
ourselves.
paying, right.
We're paying
But there was an
ourselves back.
obligation when it was first done that the aquatics members would pay, the 50% or whatever. This is keeping it in budgets.
It's in their budget.
Yeah, right.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? We kind of talked about this yesterday a little. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Thank you. Any CPI there, Mr. Bab? None? Still none? All right. We've got appointments. Let me publicly thank a couple members of the board here who worked hard, along with myself, in getting the search committee put together. Those Bill and Sharon worked really hard reaching out to folks, asking them to serve on the search committee. We have, I believe it shared 6 people and a chair at this point. Please read the names. We'll do this one separate from the rest of the appointments.
The search committee chair, Les
Well, excuse
Percept.
me, before you do that, for the record, there was an email sent out on February 1st where 4 of the 5 members that are required on this committee were in fact put forward to the board, so we did make the February 1st date. Thank you. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. Les Purcell is agreed to serve as chair for this committee. The members would be Martin Baer, that's B-A-E-R. Right, Martin? Jim Beisler, Mickey Lobb, L-O-B-B, Ellen Spatero, and Gary Martin. So that's a team of 6, and that's some fine people on there. Lots of different mixes, too.
The last 2 names again, Ellen who?
Spatero, S-P-A-T-A-R-O, and Gary Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N.
Is that Gary Martin from the swim committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Again, Bill and Sharon, thanks for your hard work in reaching out to people and those willing to serve. I appreciated that.
Especially.
That's what I mean. Talk about those 6.
No.
Okay, we have
That's the guy that
quite a series of appointments on the list here. With your agreement, I will do them as a group. Pat Supik, to the Budget and Finance Committee, being the chair of that committee. Dennis Hudson did a great job for years and is going to stay on the committee, but Pat has agreed to take over as the chair. Bernie Flax, Ron Fisher is now an employee wearing a sailor suit down at the marina, and therefore can no longer be the chair of that committee. So Bernie has agreed to step in as the chair.
and he will be missed.
Yes, he will. John Weizenberger, Aquatics Committee, first term. Doug Schwingler actually has 2 committees, jumping right in, one on the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee and on the Environmental Committee, and Austin Scrupio for the Environmental Committee. Have any objections to any of these appointments?
I motion that we approve and accept all these appointments.
Have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Again, thanks everybody for being willing to serve on these committees. They're critical to the success of our community. Media questions?
Yes. Has Judge Moore rendered his entry fee?
Judge Moore.
Promoted.
You've been promoted.
He's done that for years.
Just to clarify for the folks in the audience who were not here over the last 2 days, one of the proposals from the Budget and Finance Committee was to create basically an entrance fee for anyone who was purchasing a piece of property coming into Ocean Pines to pay a fee as an entrance fee, similar to the park does that. I understand that Glen Riddle does that as well. That was one of their proposals. And then in our discussion, we added in the idea of some kind of rental charge to the owner for renting their property, rental license. So there's 2 things on the table. I just want people to know what we were talking about, Chuck. So I don't know if you got a chance to look at this.
The response is the court is holding its determination sub curia, meaning I just got the request.
Say, Tom, can I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
I made a mistake. You got a name mistake, and I'm going to make a correction. On the committee, for the search committee, it's Gary Miller, not Martin.
Oh, Miller. Okay.
Miller.
Okay, Gary Miller. All right. Thank you.
Well, so now
Teresa, you got Miller.
Now we got to.
We're good. We can
No, we
Whole
got
meeting all over. We got
exactly.
Gary Miller Martin. We all call him Martin for short.
Jack, in my true nature, thanks for the input. Okay.
We got to withdraw that whole motion.
No, you do
You
not.
do so.
Not.
Yeah, another question. What is the actual date when the EPX starts? Is it May 15th? Is it June 1st? What is
As of right now, we're still in, nothing has been put into place yet. It's going to review by our judge, and we will be voting on that at our next board meeting. So as of right now, I can't answer.
That's the old one.
Okay, I just can't.
next point?
Are you a media now?
Just remind you, the past, not the
I was going to say, I was going to whisper in Tom's ear that Bill Rako had me as the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm
Say your
sorry.
highness too. I mean, would you like that, Joe?
You got demoted looking at this.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else? I'll take a motion for adjournment. Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you.
The employee podcast.